trade him and move on, so be it. But I just don't understand the timing of the thing where he gets a second and a third round pick. Everybody's around the league still dealing with their own business. Vegas is up against the cap. Other teams are trying to sort out their cap and sign their restricted free agents. Once they would know where they stand, the hockey trades around the league are going to kick in. So when he says there were two teams, or two offers, Jersey and the other one was reported to be Columbus, I think if he waited 3-4 weeks, that number goes up to 7-8 teams, and I, for the life of me, can't believe he didn't get a first-round pick for this kid. And the number that Jersey paid him, and everybody at the report was, he's asking for $4 million. I had, all along said he's asking for more. And he gets $4.5 million for 2 years. So what Jersey gave up and what Jersey paid tells you what they were thinking about him now. I can't believe, I think Vegas would have got a first-round pick and a prospect or a first and a third if they waited.
How good can he be?
McPhee will be judged by this, and he may end up being right. I mean, okay, he's never played a game in the NHL, but there have been a lot of guys from the KHL come and flop. There's been guys that have come and have been terrific, and in every facet of this kid's game, and every platform, be it the KHL, the Olympics, and then the Worlds, where he played against Stone in March or so, the guy's been one of the best players on the ice. And then after the fact, they trade him, and, he's not big and doesn't have elite speed. Well, okay. I don't know. 2.5 years ago, you made him the focal point of what you did with Tampa, taking on Garrison's contract to get him. And I swear, Steve, I think part of the reason, because the one thing, McPhee, they deserve a world of credit. I mean, the expansion draft, it will never be repeated. But since that time, if you sit there and add up that they gave up, it ended up being a first, second, and a third for Thomas Tatar. At the end of the day, they gave up Tatar, a first, 2 seconds, a third, and a first-round draft pick, Nick Suzuki, for Max Pacioretty. So he squandered assets, and he overpaid for Tatar. And part of me saying, well, he was willing to overpay for Tatar because he always knew he had Gusev waiting in the wings. And now those assets are gone, and that kid ain't here.
Talking to Brian Blessing, little Vegas Golden Knights, Nikita Gusev, and the trade to the New Jersey Devils. And Brian, we've just sort of accepted as the narrative, well, the Golden Knights are up against the cap. Well, things had to happen to get the Golden Knights up against the cap. Do you think there was a lack of foresight in getting the Golden Knights so capped out to where the difference between the $2 million that Gusev was willing to be paid supposedly by George McPhee and whatever the ask was, $4.5, $5 million, which in the end is not that big a difference in salary on a short-term contract. Was there a lack of foresight and planning for that?
It would be Monday morning quarterbacking, I believe. Listen, if they get by the Sharks, who knows how far they go? So they had a legitimate chance to make a deep run in 2 consecutive years. I don't blame them at all for going for it. The bottom line is, though, Mark Stone changes everything. When you get a $9.5 million player, it looks great today. That was a good trade, and they're built for the now, and they're going to be a cup contender for a while because they got number 29 between the pipes. At some point, they got to get a goalie of the future. So they're built to be really good, and it should be fine. The one thing is you got to be careful of not falling overly in love with your guys. Cody Eakin's won me over, but if you did simple math, $385 for Cody Eakin, okay, if you offered Gusev that here with no state tax, maybe he stays. And now you got Cody Glass coming in. So at the end of the day, would you rather have Cody Eakin, who I really like and plays a 200-foot game, or would you rather have Gusev? As great as the top 6 looks today and looks on paper, the one thing that was a reality last year, this team had trouble with secondary scoring with the third and fourth line. It's a big risk letting this kid go.
George McPhee has said that this team is better right now. He believes this team is better right now than the way they ended last year. And we're going to take Marc-Andre Fleury's health situation out of that during the Sharks series. There were no additions of any sort of significance to this Golden Knights team. Do you believe that a full season of Mark Stone makes this a better team than the Golden Knights were last year?
Well, he should be spectacular. That was the other thing, is imagine Gusev playing with him. But I don't know today that you can say that. Colin Miller's gone and Eric Hall is gone. And then you've got kids coming up, which is all well and good because if you go beyond Theodore and Tuck, then you make a jump into guys that are in the late 20s. This is an older hockey club. So at some point, you got to get Cody Glass in there. And that was the other thing to me, that if Gusev stayed, I think then you got wiggle room with Cody Glass, another guy that conceivably on paper, and it's revisionist history, could have been a guy like Stastny, who's a phenomenal player. But if you move Stastny's $6 million deal, then maybe a Cody Glass could go up and enhance his development by playing between Gusev and Stone, or Gusev, Pacioretty and Stone. So now you got to find a way. It's time for Cody Glass to get into the lineup. You look around the league, the Cale Makar kid, Hisshire, Patrick, the Heiskanen kid, and then the Pedersen kid from Vancouver all come out of the same draft that Cody Glass came out. It's high time that these kids start to cycle into this lineup, and one of them, for sure, on the blue line is going to make it this year.
Talking to Brian Blessing about the Vegas Golden Knights here on Cofield and Company, and you just led right into where I wanted to talk to you about, and that is the blue line. There were no additions. There are no upgrades. There are subtractions. There are kids coming in. There were questions about the Golden Knights defense core last year. Do you think that as they are constructed today, that set of defensemen is enough for the Golden Knights?
I think it's a really good defense. Is it good enough to win a cup? I don't know. And that would be the other thing that I think McPhee would like to do, is to have some wiggle room, not just be right up against the cap. You want to have $2, $3, $4 million to play with at the trade deadline, because that's his last chance to put a stamp on this team. And if it's got to be dollar for dollar, it really limits your options. As for the defense, I don't know that he makes it this year. I think of all the picks they got, the safest pick in that first year was Nick Hay. I think he's going to have a 10-year NHL career because he's a monster, and his skating's getting better, and he's got offensive upside. He may not be the guy this year, but he's going to be the safest of the lot. It'll be interesting to see if it's the Jimmy Schultz kid or White Cloud, the guys with college experience that played against older guys. It'll be an interesting competition on the blue line. Yeah, it's a really good defense. I don't know that it's a great defense,